Hey guys, Jocelyn here with Fantasia Elegance. In this video I'll be showing you how to make this wire wrapped pendant, which hopefully I will come up with a name for this style before I post the video. But it's very elegant, cute little teardrop shape here, and it's actually simpler to make than it looks. This one does use an oval cabochon, which is about 15 millimeters wide and 20 millimeters high. Give or take a little bit is fine. If you want to do significantly larger or smaller, of course you can. You'll just need to adjust your wire lengths up and down a little bit to account for that. I'm going to be using a labradorite cabochon. This is one of my favorite stones with that cool flash, but again, you can use any gemstone type you like as long as it's oval and not super tall. As far as wire goes, you're going to need 3 different types. So I'm going to be using some square 20 gauge dead soft wire. I'll be using sterling silver. Of course, you can do whatever you like. For that 20 gauge square, you will need 3 pieces that are all 9 inches long. So you can go ahead and cut those at the start. So 3 pieces of 9 inches long. For those of you in metric, that's going to be just about 22.5 centimeters. You'll also need some half round 20 gauge wire. Again, I'll be using sterling silver. For this, you're just going to need 2 pieces of that 20 gauge half round. One piece is going to be 3 inches, the other piece is going to be 4 inches, and for those of you in metric, that's about 8 and 10.5 centimeters. Those don't have to be exact. Kind of ballpark will work for you there. And then our last wire that we're going to be using is some 28 gauge round dead soft wire. We'll be using that to wrap our little bail here. I will be using fine silver. I just find that works a little bit better and easier for doing this kind of wire weaving, but again, you can use sterling just fine. I do have mine on this little bobbin here for ease of weaving. I'll leave a link in the description section below for where you can buy these if you're curious, but if you don't have one of these, about a 36-inch piece should be plenty for you of that 28 gauge round dead soft wire. As always, I do have in the description section below a list of the tools I'll be using, the exact brands, where you can buy them if you're curious, but you'll just need some chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, some flush cutters. You may find it helpful to have some bail pliers if you have them. If not, no worries, just get any round object like a paintbrush with a kind of small circular shape there. So the first thing we're going to do is pull out your 3 pieces of 9-inch long 20 gauge square wire and your shorter piece of the half round wire, the 3-inch piece. What we're going to do is use this little 3-inch piece to wrap at the center of our square wires. And then we will just put a tight little wrap in right there at the center, and you can use your chain nose pliers to assist you in making sure that's a nice tight wrap. And we're going to put in a good like 6 or 7 tight wraps there. Once you've got those wraps in, go ahead and pick a side that's going to be the inside or the back, and we will end the tails there on that side that you pick. So I'm just going to make sure both tails are coming around on that side that I've picked. I'm going to snip them off, leaving enough that it will end nicely in the middle of the square wires. And then I will use my little tweezer nose pliers here to smush those down nicely. Then we're going to form a V shape with, again, that inside that we just picked being on the inside of the V. So I'm going to pull out my chain nose pliers here. I'm going to grip right on the middle of that wrap we made and just put a little V-shaped bend in. So this is where it can get a little bit on the tricky side. But what you can do is set your stone on a flat surface, put the wires down next to it, and then just start bending all these tails up around on your stone. And then once you get close, you can cross the 2 bundles of wires, have one go over top and one go below. And I'm kind of using one hand to keep that stone down flat, and the other to help bend wires up around it nicely. so that you then have that kind of swooping shape with your wires and the stone going in the center. You can pick it up and do any refining you need to in the air. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball this and look and see it's not symmetrical, of course. So I'm going to very gently do a little final shaping here. Until you have something like that. And it's okay if you have a little bit of extra room. We are going to be kind of tightening this down around the stone. And if you have absolutely no wiggle room to work with at all, you can risk actually cracking your stone because as we add additional wraps to these frame wires, they can kind of compress a little bit and tighten up on that stone. And now that we have this shape figured out, we're going to look where all these wires cross right up here. And I'm just going to form a little junction where I bend the sets of wires away from each other at that point. So right where they cross, I'm gripping with my chain nose pliers, and I'm going to bend these out away from each other. Doing the same thing on the other side. Now we're going to pull out our longer piece of that half round wire and use it to wrap around right here to connect all 6 of these wires together. I'm going to start kind of more towards one end of the wire with just a little bit of a tail. And you want to make sure that all your wires, all your square wires, are staying stacked nicely so that you have each set of 3 stacked together and then meeting kind of in 2 little columns there like that. So that's what you're going for, and that will become a little bit easier to get in place as we go. So I'm going to go on my half round wire, I don't know, about 1/3 of the way in. Just put a little starting bend in there to make this easier for myself. Dropping it over our square wires, and then we're going to start wrapping it around. Just being careful with that first wrap that everything is aligned how it's supposed to be before I kind of cement it in too much by tightening it way down. And then once you're sure that everything is lined up how you want, you can just start putting in, I'd go for 3 or 4 nice solid wraps here to hold that all together. So that we've got something like that. Just go ahead and leave these wire tails for now. We're going to finish those up later. And at this point what we can do is get our stone inside of this shape, and we're going to start putting in the wire bends that will encase the stone and hold it in place. So to do that, I'm going to view this from the side. Of course, we have our 3 square wires stacked up there. The back wire that's going to be on the back of the pendant, I'm just going to pop out slightly, just working a fingernail in there or your pliers to pull that up and away ever so slightly from the other wires. And we'll do that on both sides. And that will just help us to put this little bend in that we need. So at this point what we're going to do is work with just that back wire and going on the middle of it. I'm just going to bend it in, forming kind of a little V going in towards the center of that space in our shape. And you can alternate which side you're working on to achieve the best shape. So that's what we're going for. We'll do the same thing down here, just taking care that it's staying symmetrical so your little V shape is falling kind of in the same place that your other one did. And again, we are working on the back of our design here. So flipping back around, now we are at the front, and you can set your stone on, and as you can see, it's being trapped there on the back. We will then do the exact same thing from the front. So I'm going to separate out these wires a little bit. I'm taking that frontmost wire only, being careful to go on the center line of it. I'm going to bend it up and over the stone. And again, as you can see, I'm going on one side, and that kind of kicks this out too much. So then I go back on the other side to refine that shape a little bit so that we're getting a nice symmetrical little V popping out over there. Holding my stone in place carefully because we're not done, I'm going to rotate this around so that I can work on the other side. Again, popping that front wire up slightly and being very careful to place this one right on the center of the stone. Alright, so now that we've got our stone in place, let's go ahead and make the bail for this pendant. So I'm going to take the top two sets of wires on both sides and bend them out of the way a little bit. And we're going to form the bail with these back two wires. And you do want these to be splaying apart a little bit of a V shape. That's going to actually form the shape of our bail, if you can see there on the completed piece. So if yours are going straight together, just spread them out a little bit into this V shape. And we're going to pull out now our 28 gauge weaving wire. And I'm going to start by laying just like 1.5 inches over top here so I have something to hold on to. So I'm just holding that little tail there. And I'm going to start wrapping a couple times around the very base there as low down as we can, just around these two innermost wires. Just like that to get it placed. And then we're going to start doing a simple figure 8 weave here. So to do that, I'm going to wrap my wire around one of our square wires 3 times. Okay, so I've just gone around the right hand square wire 3 times, and go ahead and push your little wraps down together there. And then I'm going to cross over to the opposite wire, going over it. So if you kind of look at the top, we're going to be doing a figure 8 around our 2 square wires. So I've crossed over to our left hand square wire, and we're going to wrap it around just that wire now 3 times. So there's 1, 2, 3, and pushing your little wraps down so they're staying nice and tight. And then again, we're going to cross back over, doing that figure 8 shape. So I'm crossing back over, going over top of the right hand one, and then doing 3 wraps around just the right hand one, crossing back over to the left, going over top of it, doing 3 wraps around the left, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and continue that weaving pattern with the 3 wraps between each transfer and pass over until you get to your desired bail height. So for mine, I'm going to continue that weave for about 1/2 inch or so, and then we will need to do some more bending on our base wires. Alright, so once you have about 1/2 inch woven up there like that, what we're going to do is create a little bit of a straight portion where these 2 wires are running parallel with each other. And take my chain nose pliers here, and just right above where the weaving stops, I'm going to bend these 2 bail wires in towards each other. And then we're going to put in another, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch or so of weaving. Again, the exact same pattern as before, where we are wrapping around 3 times and then crossing between the wires in a little figure 8. And then we're going to bend them in to create the rest of our little bail shape. So I'm just going to bend them so they cross over each other. And at this point, what you're looking for is for the little triangular shape on the lower part to be mirrored by the triangular shape on the upper part, so that when we bend this bail over on itself, the front and the back are symmetrical and line up nicely together. So just comparing the upper and lower parts of our shape here, and you can adjust where these are crossing over accordingly. Once you have the point decided where they're going to cross over each other, I'm going to bend them apart once more, ever so slightly, just to make our weaving a little bit easier, so that they are coming together but then swooping back apart. And we're just going to continue our same weave all the way up to this point. It does get a little trickier now because as we are weaving with the wires coming closer to each other, your weaving wire is going to try and slide down that way as you're going. So to combat that, just take your time, go slow, make sure you're pushing everything nice and tight back down that way to keep your weaving wires all next to each other nicely with each pass. And you can also, as you're wrapping, kind of hold things in place with your left hand, just to make sure that nothing is slipping and sliding up more than you want it to. Okay, so now we have finished weaving our bale completely. We're going to go ahead and shape this. So to do that, I'm going to bend our entire bale forward slightly so that it's coming up towards the front of our design. And now if you have bale pliers, you can use those. If not, you can just use like the handle of a paintbrush or something small and round. But we're just going to put a bend into our bale here, bending it at that upper portion we made where it kind of levels out and goes straight for a little while. I'm just going to wrap it all the way around until it comes around to the back. Now to secure that bale in place, we're actually going to use a little bit of this half-round wire, and we're going to undo the wrapping that we have there and redo it to go around the bale wires as well. So first let me get rid of this weaving wire. I'm just going to switch around to the back, and we will snip that off in such a way that we can pass it around to the back and secure it down there. So I'm going to use my tweezer nose pliers to just push that tail so it'll be hidden on the inside of the bale. Okay? And then we're going to do the same thing. We had a little bit of wire at the start of the weaving, so again I'm going to snip that off on the inside of the bale so it'll be hidden, and pushing that end down to secure it. Now if you can see here our little weaves that we made before with that half-round wire to secure, we're just going to undo a few of those. And then I'm going to rewrap them, including these two bale wires. Okay, so just rewrapping, this time going around all the wires and making each pass nice and tight as we go. I'm going to make sure I get at least 4 wraps encapsulating those bale wires there so that everything will be nice and secure. I'm going to go ahead and finish off this lower part of our half-round wire, and to do that I'm just going to wrap it once or twice through this space here around our frame wires just to kind of secure it in place. So I'm going to wrap it twice around the right-hand side of where the frame wires come together there. And then I'm going to snip it so that it can end on the inside of the pendant, and just pushing it down with my tweezer nose pliers. There we go. And then let's go ahead and finish off as well these two wire ends from the bale. I'm going to splay them out slightly, going away from each other, and we're going to put the tiniest possible little loops that we can, bending them back up towards the top of the bale. If you can see there, like that. So they are bending back up as close as they go against that wrap, and then the ends are ending right where it touches the bale. Okay, so that's what we're going to try and do with those. So I'm just going to bend it up as tight and snug as I can, arcing it back towards the bale, and then right where it's going to touch the bale I'm going to snip off the wire and push it on down to secure it. Okay, and we'll do the same thing with the other side. So now we have these side wires and we're going to do a little decoration with them. So as you can see here, we're going to crisscross both of them, both sets, over the center of our stone. So to do that, I'm going to take the uppermost wire on each side and just swoop it around in a nice arc and have it go over the top third of our stone. We'll do the same thing on the other side, trying to make this match. It's just swooping it around, and as you can see, we're creating kind of a little heart shape right there. And you want these to cross over just the top little portion of our stone. That will help hold it securely in place. And do any tweaking you need just to make sure that both sides of our little heart shape are symmetrical there. And then with the remaining wires, we're going to create a slightly larger swoop. So I'm going to go on the outside of that one we just made, and with these I want them to pass over the lower portion of our stone. And I'm just using my chain nose pliers here to ensure that the flat side of that square wire is facing forward as it wraps around. Again, we'll do the same thing with our other wire, just swooping it around here, trying to make it match. And you want each of these tails to cross over right where that first little half round wire wrap at the point of our diamond shape. You want them to be hitting right there on both sides. Okay, so let's go ahead and start attaching these wires to secure everything in place. I'm going to start with one of these lower ones. So go ahead and find where it's going to contact the frame right there, and that is where we're going to wrap it around. So being very careful that I don't tighten this too much to where I pull in that side of the shape. As you can see there, I want to maintain that kind of open swoop. I'm going to mark that point where it crosses over, and I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and just start wrapping this tail around all three of our frame wires there. So I'm going to tuck it back behind and bring it up through. I'm going to tighten that wrap down just a little bit, not all the way yet. I'm going to go back to the front, double check that things are sitting where I want them to, and then I will bit by bit start closing up that wrap. Then you can do 2 or 3 wraps there, however much you want to make it secure. I think 2 is going to be good, so I'm going to snip this off and then hide that end on the inside. So just using my chain nose pliers to push that end towards the inside of our piece, and then snugging it down against our frame wires. Okay, so that's what we have now. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, taking special care that things stay symmetrical for us as we're wrapping it. So that's what we have now. We just have these 2 tails left to finish. And these guys we're going to swoop around towards the back, as you can see there, and they are going to crisscross over the back. So starting with one side, I'm going to push it against the stone, kind of pushing it towards the back. And because of how the square wire sits here, it's starting to turn and have one corner of the square touching the stone. I don't want that to happen. I want the flat side to be towards the stone the whole time. So I'm just going to rotate it slightly using my chain nose pliers as it wraps around the stone, just to maintain that flat side being against the stone. Then we're going to switch over to this other one and start wrapping that around as well, just to make sure that they are both wrapping around the stone at the same level. And then we're going to cross those 2 wires over on the back. Alright, and then to finish these 2 off, we're going to wrap them around the frame just above where we placed that previous wrap. So again, tucking this under, coming back around, and putting in a nice tight wrap there. I'm doing the same thing on the other side. Alright, and then as before, I'm just going to cut off these tails so that I can have the end on the inside. So I'm going to push that little end down against the frame wires on the inside of our pendant. Alright, and then we just have this little piece of half round up here to finish off, which I'm going to do just by wrapping it around a couple times around these right hand swoops, just to make sure that it is secure and not going to go anywhere. So I'll just wrap it around those guys once or twice, and again snipping that off so that it can end kind of on the middle inside there, just like so. So that is our finished design. I really hope you guys enjoyed this and found it easy to follow. Of course, all you need to do now is just slide this on a chain or a cord, whatever you like. I do have some different tutorials on how to kind of make your own chains, make your own clasps, that kind of thing. So you can check those out on my channel if you're curious. If you want to see more tutorials like this one, do make sure you subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications. And let me know in the comments below if you made this and how it went for you. As always, stay tuned for the next video, and in the meantime, happy crafting!